Hey guys, it's Corey with 10 Best Ones, and today we've decided to review the 5 best options for you. If you'd like to see their price and find out more information, you can check out the links in the description down below. Let's get started. Moving up, we have the most versatile model out there. Let's take a look.
Number 5. Google Pixel 4a. Most of the Pixel 4a strengths really made me appreciate Google's cheap phone. The battery life, the size, the headphone jack are all fantastic, but one thing ended up getting in the way of me keeping the Pixel 4a. The Google Pixel 4a is the perfect size if you like small phones. The 5.81-inch display might seem big on a spec sheet, but the small bezels and punch-hole camera help make this a truly one-handed phone. I never once wished I had a larger phone while scrolling through social media or watching YouTube videos. For as refreshing as the Pixel 4a is to use coming from a big premium phone, I don't like everything about its design. It's fine on the front, but the back of the phone is quite boring. There aren't any visual flares, and it doesn't help that the 4a is only offered in one colour. Also, it's quite light at just 143 grams. It felt like I was holding a toy the entire time I used the phone. Speaking of the display, it's good. Google went with a 5.81-inch AMOLED panel that really didn't make me miss the Quad HD resolution of other flagship phones. The Pixel 4a's display gets dim enough for nighttime use, and it's contrasty without appearing unnatural. I do wish it was able to get a little brighter though. You probably already know this, but I'll say it again anyway. The Pixel 4a's cameras are great. You get the same single rear-facing 12-megapixel sensor that Google used on previous Pixel phones. The camera setup is all about simplicity. The stereo speakers get loud enough to walk around the house playing music or podcasts. The Google Pixel 4a comes with a 3140 mAh non-removable battery, which is larger than the power pack in its predecessor. The Google Pixel 4a comes with enough power to ensure you can do everything you want on the phone. You get a Snapdragon 730 chipset, 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, of which around 108GB is actually available to you. These specs are more than acceptable at Pixel 4a's price, but an issue arises if you start to look around, because in terms of the spec sheet, the Google Pixel 4a is outgunned by rivals in a number of ways. There aren't too many smartphones around these days which you can comfortably use one-handed, but the Google Pixel 4a is one of them.
Next up, we have a model which gives you the best value for your money.
Number 4. Xiaomi Mi Note 10 Lite. The Mi Note 10 Lite uses a Snapdragon 730G processor, which is an 8-core chip designed for gaming, alongside 8GB of RAM and either 64GB or 128GB of storage. It's non-expandable since there's no micro SD card slot, so you have to be sure of your storage needs before you get the phone. You get a 6.47-inch AMOLED display which is bright and displays colours vibrantly, with a teardrop cutout for the front camera. Performance is good, switching between apps is seamless, and there's no lag even in games like Asphalt 9. It's an FHD Plus display, but unfortunately there's no high refresh rate, so you might be able to tell the difference if you were previously using a flagship phone with 90Hz or 120Hz refresh rates. You get a single down-firing speaker which can get pretty loud when watching shows or playing games, and it's pretty immersive. I would have preferred stereo sound, and the placement of the speaker is unfortunate since your palm will most likely cover it when holding the phone in landscape orientation. It also boasts a quad camera array at the back with a 64-megapixel main camera, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera, 2-megapixel macro lens, and a 5-megapixel depth sensor, while the front camera is a pretty standard 16-megapixel shooter. It doesn't use the same 108-megapixel main camera that the Mi Note 10 we reviewed does, but clearly concessions had to be made to keep the price low. Battery life is excellent. You get a 5260 mAh battery that supports 30-watt fast charging, and the fast charger is actually provided in the box. You won't have to fork out additional cash for it. Watching 2 episodes of a Netflix drama only resulted in a 7% drop in battery, and on a full charge this phone will last a single day for heavy users or even a day and a half on light to moderate use. There's no wireless charging on this, but that's to be expected on a mid-range phone. For the general consumer though, who just wants to play mobile games, watch Netflix and use their phone for chatting with friends and snapping photos, this is a gem in the mid-range phones category.
Battery life is extremely important. This next model has the best battery life out of the bunch.
Number 3. Moto G Power. The Moto G Power still has the typical Motorola aesthetic, but there are a number of changes that make it look and feel more refined. For example, the front of the phone has a larger screen-to-body ratio, with no Motorola branding on the bottom bezel. It measures 6.29 by 2.99 by 0.38 inches and weighs 7.02 ounces. The front is dominated by a 6.4-inch LCD with a notch in the top left for the front-facing camera, a big improvement over the Moto G7 Power. The resolution has been bumped up to 2300 by 1080 for a density of 399 pixels per inch, and the aspect ratio is 19:9 thanks to the minimised bezels. On the bottom edge you'll find a USB-C charging port, a headphone jack and a speaker. The left side is home to the hybrid SIM and micro SD slot. The right side holds textured power and volume buttons, while the top of the phone is bare. The buttons provide a satisfying click but can be difficult to reach with small hands. The Moto G Power features a triple camera stack with a 16-megapixel primary lens with an f1.7 aperture, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide lens with an f2.2 aperture, and a 2-megapixel macro lens with an f2.2 aperture. The front-facing camera clocks in at 16 megapixels with an f2.0 aperture. The phone is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 665 chipset with 4GB of RAM. There's 64GB of eMMC 5.1 storage, of which 48GB is available out of the box. While 48GB of storage should be enough for moderate users, you can add up to an additional 512GB of external storage with a micro SD card. The Moto G Power offers snappy performance and truly spectacular battery life in a handset you can use anywhere in the world.
Before we talk about the best model overall, let's look at the runner-up for this list.
Number 2. Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S. One of the best budget options out there that'll present a great performance is the Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S. This phone packs a punch with its great specs, premium design, battery life for ages, and great value for your money. When first looking at the Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S, it's hard to notice that this is not a flagship device and is priced at the budget range. It has a colourful glossy body that makes it just beautiful, especially at the edges where the plastic body meets the display. The bezels are nearly non-existent here, and you'll spot a clean punch hole on the top left to keep things neat. Fortunately, on this device, compared to most modern ones, you'll spot a 3.5mm headphone jack that we miss so much by now. On the back of the device, you'll spot the camera array with its 4 lenses, and right under that, you'll spot the fingerprint scanner. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S is packed with a 6.67-inch LCD panel that has a beautiful Full HD Plus 2340 by 1080p display. This results in a marvellous 394 pixels per inch density, which is amazing for detail and sharpness. The peak brightness reaches about 450 nits, which is pretty good for visibility, but the most important thing about this display for us is its Game Turbo mode that'll deliver a wonderful experience when gaming, like its name implies. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S packs 4 rear cameras, including the main 48-megapixel sensor, the 8-megapixel wide-angle sensor, the 2-megapixel macro sensor, and the 2-megapixel depth sensing sensor. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 9S is packed with an impressive Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G CPU, which performed some pretty impressive speeds, combined with its 6GB of RAM and the Adreno 618 graphics processor with the AI engine that helps it out. This will provide a pretty smooth experience for productivity, well worth the price.
Finally, the next model is the best overall. From us, it gets a perfect score in all categories.
And number 1, Samsung Galaxy A7 One. One of the best phones to come out of the Galaxy A lineup last year was the Galaxy A70. It was the first Samsung phone to offer 25-watt wired charging and offer decent specs in the form of a Snapdragon 675. The Galaxy A7 One builds on that formula with updates to the camera and chipset, and it also sports an exciting new design with a smaller cutout. Samsung hasn't changed too much here from last year, but the updates make the Galaxy A7 One an enticing option in the mid-range category in 2020. Samsung offered vibrant gradient designs last year across the Galaxy A series, and in 2020 it's making a few tweaks to the design. There's now a crisscross pattern underneath the back that shows up as light reflects off the surface of the phone, and it's broken into quadrants. Each quadrant has a slightly different hue, and the overall effect is rather striking. The Galaxy A7 One sports a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED screen with a tall 20:9 aspect ratio and a resolution of 2400 by 1080. The rounded rectangular module on the phone's back holds 4 cameras, the main one at 64 megapixels. Although that number matches the one seen on the Galaxy S20's telephoto camera, this isn't the same cam. The rest are 5 megapixel depth camera, an ultra-wide 12 megapixel shooter with a 123-degree angle of view, and a 5 megapixel macro camera for taking extreme close-ups. Above the latter is also a flash, useful for nighttime shots. Performance from the Galaxy A7 One is smooth and snappy with 0 hiccups. The phone is running Android 10 with Samsung's One UI 2.0 skin on top, while on the inside it's packing the reasonably fast Snapdragon 730 upper mid-range processor with either 6 or 8 GB of RAM. Browsing through menus or social media feeds and even multitasking is a completely lag-free experience. Gaming is smooth also, although heavier games may need to be set to medium graphics settings. The 4500 mAh battery on board can last this phone well over 2 days of light usage on a single charge, even with always-on display. The Samsung Galaxy A7 One has plenty going for it, from its big screen and power to the feature-packed cameras and massive battery. This could well be a winning formula at an attractive price point. Buying guide. Firstly, display. If you're like most of us, you're going to spend hours each day staring at your smartphone screen. Make sure you're buying one that's bright enough to see outdoors and sharp enough where text doesn't look blurry while you're surfing the web. If you're buying a phone with a large screen, don't go under a resolution of 1920 by 1080p. And if you can splurge, look for the sharper 2560 by 1440 Quad HD resolutions. Secondly, storage. I know plenty of folks try to save money by buying cheaper phones, but often they ship without much storage on board. I recommend buying a smartphone with at least 64 GB of storage or more if you plan to download music and movies. Apps are much bigger these days and pictures can take a lot of space if you're not storing them in the cloud. Apple Photos, Google Photos or other services offer these options. Some Android smartphones also offer micro SD card slots that allow you to boost the storage space. And thirdly, battery life. Read reviews or talk to people who already own the phone you're interested in buying. You want one that's going to last all day if possible. The biggest complaints I get from friends and family is that the smartphones are always dead. If you're in this bunch, consider a smartphone with a fast charging battery. Most Android smartphone makers include the special chargers that can juice up a battery to at least a half charge in just minutes. Or if you own an iPhone, consider buying an iPad charger to get more juice. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked the video. If you found it helpful, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this in the future. If you have any questions related to these products, you can leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.